The conversations and information provided are not intended to substitute professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.
The opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not reflect the view of Humana Military or the Department of Defense.
Welcome to the Operation Within podcast, where we talk about health and a deeper sense of well-being.
Operation Within is a collective initiative to optimize holistic health matters and nourish within community, within self, and within family.
Thank you for joining the conversation on Operation Within podcast. We are your hosts, Mel
and Marty, and our conversations are real, they're raw, and reflective.
These conversations offer meaningful dialogue on experiences within the military community, oriented to empower and strengthen health and vitality in our communities who serve.
We want to give a special thanks to Humana Military and our partners who have brought Operation Within to life.
Let's dive in. Hello, we are back, and I'm so excited to introduce Adam Evans. He is a networker and also grew up as a military child and is a military spouse now. Huge military advocate. He's also a professor in the MBA program at University of Kentucky and the chief strategy officer of Instant Hands. Also a bit of a gamer nerd. He is actually a level 42 Pokemon trainer. Adam, we are excited to have you. It's so great to have you here with us today.
Oh my gosh, Melissa, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, and I find that connecting with other military spouses and those who advocate for the military community, there's just so much diversity in what brings, I think one of the most magical things about the military is that it brings together people who are so different, but it draws in this deep connection in this family. And with the work that you do and even your background, I would love to hear more about your story. And, obviously being a military child and the military has obviously been part of your entire life. Will you share a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting early on, being a military child, I think I went through a lot of the things that most military children do. There's ups and downs. I think as a child, you're exposed to a lot of amazing opportunities, but in the moment, you kind of see the downside more often. You see moving a lot, you see leaving your friends a lot, and it's not until later on in life that you really appreciate those experiences. So, grew up, my dad served, he's a retired colonel in the Air Force. He served 21 years. My mom was, for the most part, a stay-at-home mom. She was phenomenal for my sister and I in all those different moves. And after I finished college, I went into a couple different business experiences. I'm sure we can share parts of those today. And fast forward, I met my now husband about 8 years ago, almost to this weekend. And at the very first couple dates, he had mentioned to me wanting to join the Air Force. And, sure enough, after about 7 years, we ended up, he's now an officer in the Air Force. We're living that military life again. Your family can leave the military. It never leaves you. And so here we are now, stationed out in Phoenix, Arizona, and loving life, doing some amazing things with some business opportunities out here in the armed forces. Of course, supporting my family out here. And really, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
That's amazing. So did your husband also grow up in the military, or was it kind of his first step with getting involved in the military?
None. My husband is from a very small town in Kentucky. And I think growing up, limited exposure, major cities for somebody in a small town is usually the capital of the state. That's where he attended college, but for the most part, really remained stationed at that one location. So I think part of the enticement for him has always been the armed forces gives you that opportunity to travel to many places. So while I grew up with that experience, he was really looking forward to that opportunity. And so he definitely has been enjoying the idea of getting orders just about anywhere.
Yeah. And it's so crazy too. You're talking about like the getting up and moving around as a military child. I didn't grow up in the military family, but having a child of my own and doing the moving around thing, it was just the other night, my 5-year-old she asked, because my husband was in Florida for some time. So we did a geographical separation. And so my daughter and I would be back and forth from Florida to Texas because I had my businesses here in Texas. And she was like, "Are we going to do one of those long car rides again?" And I was like, "No, we're here for," I couldn't say forever. I'm like, "But a couple more years, and it's interesting from the child's eyes of, and as a parent, I think that for those listening, if as military parents too, it's like, like this is such an incredible opportunity. Hopefully they'll appreciate it later on, but at the same time, there's like, okay, got to manage some type of grounding, right? It's like a balance of the two.
Absolutely. And I'm sure it's challenging for you. And again, I think, it's just the nature of a child to want some stability. And like you said, grounding is the perfect word. That's what I thought I was missing growing up, thinking, oh my gosh, you're only going to be my friend for 3 months. And then, is this a limited friendship? But in reality, fast forward, especially with things like social media, I was able to reconnect with those military family friends that maybe once upon a time, and I'm dating myself a bit, but we were pen pals. We literally kept each other's address and stamps and wrote each other letters wherever we were stationed to try and keep in touch. So social media like Facebook, Instagram, those things have connected us. And I'm still in touch with a lot of my friends growing up from military families, and a lot of them now serve themselves. So there's definitely something to be said about, hold on, parents out there, you're doing the right thing. You're making some tough choices, but in the long run, the appreciation for the most part can sometimes come later.
Yeah, I feel like too, there's this skill of adaptability that is gained for military kids, and like introducing you and getting to know you. The networking, that it's like the natural connection. Like you have, I feel like you're somebody you could probably talk to anyone. And those skills, I'm sure, came from that adaptability growing up.
100%. I think I can't stress enough the amount of, and I know it's a term that's used all the time, but I really believe in it, and it's resilience.
Mm.
Military children have an abundance of it through the nature of what they live and these lived experiences and transitioning. So I definitely feel like that talent of networking and being present and learning, from different experiences and different people and connecting to just a variety of people has served me so well and has been one of the key ingredients to all of my successes. So I definitely attribute that to developing that resilience and seeing opportunity in each one of those transitional moments.
Well, and that leads to the birth of Instant Hands. I want to learn more about this and have you share more about this, because this is actually how I connected with you and was blown away by the concept. And it's just such an empowering program that you guys are a bit like this is just such an empowering concept, and I'm just so excited for you to share. So if you will share a little bit of the history around it and about it.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to share this as well, because this has been that job that I've had where I wake up every morning and I'm excited to go to work. So it's exciting to tell. And just the people I work with as well. They make it an adventure, an exciting adventure every day. But let me rewind. Instant Hands is a technology company, and we connect people with people. So imagine like the Tinder of small jobs around your house. You need somebody to come to your house and maybe walk your dog, or somebody that could come to your house and do a little bit of drywall repair, or maybe some landscaping. Those things that are on a list that you postpone because you just don't have time or you don't have the money to do so. And what we do is we connect all of those families, whether they're civilian or military families, we connect all of them with other military families. So active duty, guard, reserve, veterans, their immediate families that have the skill sets to perform those tasks. So we have everyone from cleaners to folks who do oil changes, you name it. We probably have somebody in our provider listing, and they're all connected to the service in some shape, way, or form. So they're people that you can trust. They're people that don't overcharge you. They don't add on or tack on things you don't need to the task list. They're just simply military families that might be looking for a little bit of financial security, military spouses who might need some very convenient employment, and you basically have this entire provider listing in your area of folks who can help you out with things around your house. And it's been incredibly successful out here. Right now, we are stationed at Luke, like I said, just west of Phoenix. And we already, in the next short amount of time, maybe a year or less, we are already at Luke Air Force Base, Yuma Marine Corps Air Station, Davis Monthan in Tucson, Arizona. We're also all the way up in Las Vegas at Nellis Air Force Base, Creech Air Force Base. We serve every single branch, including the Space Force. And we have national partnerships that include Blue Star families. We're looking at USO. We're looking at the American Red Cross is formalizing a partnership with as we speak. So some major military organizations that have lent their support because this has long been needed, and probably something that when we talk to veterans, it's something that's always been around, but we just put an app to it. So we have an app, a website, a phone line. This side hustle idea is not new, but making it specifically to serve armed forces families is, and that's where we're making our footprint.
Well, it's brilliant because I think about like Facebook groups, right? And I literally saw this yesterday. It's like looking for and I do this too, where it's like if I need cleaning or like just different jobs, like I want to support military spouses. I want to support military families. So, you'll see this in Facebook groups, like the military family or spouses Facebook group of looking for somebody who does, and, trying to find those people. Sometimes it can get buried in those Facebook groups. It can be so unorganized, or, you try to build word of mouth. Like, let's say you move to a new duty station and you're trying to build word of mouth. It can be challenging, right? If you don't know anyone. So what an amazing way to fine tune that resource. And then it gives the civilian world an opportunity to support our military world and military families, because when you think about how many people want to support the military, but might not know how to help, by hiring someone who's a military spouse or a veteran, and, rather than just, anybody you find on Google, you're giving back to that community and you're helping that support.
100%. And, we've had the stats now for a year and a half, and our repeat customer list is through the roof. It's almost triple what any other service is out there for. Once they've used the service, they love it and say, oh, well, while you're here, could you also, fix this thing, or can you come back later and help, with this piece around the house, or it's just peace of mind. Over COVID, two things happened. Quite a few military families lost their employment, especially if they were in maybe Guard Reserve, or if you were a military spouse, you automatically became the homeschooler.
Yep.
And that was really incredibly rough. So this provided a little bit of financial peace of mind, because you come to the table with what skill sets you want to provide, and you never have to complete a job. If it's something that you just can't do it because you have a doctor's appointment that day, you simply don't accept the job, and we help you find another provider in the area who can help you do it. So that part has been incredibly, just helpful. And then you mentioned that civilian connection piece. I know from several of the stories and different Facebook groups, it sounds like it's the same occurrence. But at Luke, we had an air show that was canceled due to COVID. And the air show was that once a year, once every other year, major event for our civilian friends to come on base and actually interact with all of the service members. Because otherwise, and I know this from growing up, there's really not a ton of opportunities to connect with your community. I think the armed forces world lives in that tunnel of what you need to accomplish on base, and the civilians might be incredibly patriotic, but don't have an ID or don't have an event where you get to meet and really get to know our armed forces members and their families.
Yeah.
So by sending someone to your home that's a military member that you know and can trust, and they're coming to actually, support you in something or help you out with a task around your home, it starts it off on the right foot. And what we saw in the last year was our service members, especially the younger members, were getting invited, especially if they couldn't go home for the holidays. They were getting invited to Thanksgiving dinners. They were getting invited over to just pick up a dozen homemade cookies for the holidays because they couldn't have, they couldn't go home that year. So those kinds of things have turned into some major deployment support packages from our local community. And hearing the stories, it really is the reality that a lot of our service members are living at or below the poverty line. And one of the whys that we have as a company is that it should never be a choice between serving your country and living at poverty.
Yeah, I think
No.
that people don't realize, they don't realize how even though in the military there's quote unquote job security, the job insecurity for family members, and then, or the concept that, okay, we get BAH that pays for groceries, but if you have 5 kids or 4 kids, like BAH isn't going to cover that, It's
Right.
it's a very challenging and complex issue, but I think that's the idea, because I've had the privilege to support different food distributions over the past year, and specifically for military families, and the surprise, even within the service community, the military service community, it's like, wait a second, there's people who are food insecure, and it's such a hidden thing, it's something we don't want to look at and talk about, right? Because there's underlying challenges with this, right? And I think that's something that's so point on about what you're doing and what Instant Hands does, is that it harnesses connection and support, right? Like there's this big piece of connection that can occur through our service.
Yes. And I think, there are so many resources, and I'm just going to speak to the Air Force because I know it best. There are so many available resources, both in the Department of Defense and also those organizations that are aiming to support the troops. So everything from deployment packages to grants and small loans, Air Force Aid Society. There are a great deal of resources, but we tend to look at it and say, maybe it is the number of children, or there's a lot of negative, right? So you are food dependent because of your choices. Where in reality, when I'm working as a key spouse and a key spouse mentor, what I see firsthand are families that were caught off guard. It wasn't that they had too many children. It was they had 5 children in a plan, and then life happened. COVID happened. Things that were totally unexpected that have ruined whole organizations that also thought they had a plan. So families, it's not that they necessarily need to be dependent on it full time. It was that, in the moment, you need a little bit more support. You need to stop by the food pantry. And I see them coming in week to week to our food pantry and utilizing that resource, but just to get back on your feet. And that. In the same light, I see families that maybe the chores have had to wait while I figure out the major things like homeschooling and rides and food. And so Instant Hands being able to jump in with a cleaner, and for a reasonable fee, we just get you a jump start on your chores, and then you mentally are ready to tackle the rest of the day. Those are the real stories that, I think go without a lot of press. And it's the truth of what's happening behind the scenes, is that we have all been in a place where we could have used a little more support.
Yeah.
Nobody as a provider, and I think these providers that work using the Instant Hands app absolutely know that. We've all been there where just a little bit of extra food, a couple extra dollars could have just eased the burden of life a little bit more. And when you combine that mindset with the idea of military families really do look out for each other.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. But for the most part, the spouse clubs, the larger Facebook groups, even some of the Scentsy and Etsy and just, essential oil groups, there's a lot of camaraderie in there and a lot of gratitude and validation that I think military families are really good at providing to one another, and especially through challenging times. So it's a magic formula for us.
Well, and I think too that this is such a great option because, I find a lot of military spouses are also multi-passionate, and there, and I think that for so long, we're conditioned in our culture to, you got to pick that one thing you like, and that's your job, and that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. But as a military spouse, I was 19 dropping out of college to go marry my husband and, moving to Bragg and figuring it out. I had the yoga in my pocket and ideas with that, but I also, there's other things I was passionate about and trying to figure out what I'm going to do for job security. And I did, when as an early military spouse, I was like, I had all these ideas and things I could do. And I realized that I can't be everything to everyone. I have to really ask my heart what I'm passionate about. And for a lot of military spouses who have talents and these skills, and it's just like, but I don't know where to plant because I can't really plant myself in one place for too long. And I can advocate, because I tried to do that, and I wouldn't recommend a geographical separation, living two places. It was hard. Like, I'm never gonna sugarcoat that experience. That was not easy, because I did try to plant myself in San Antonio, but like being able to have options, like something like what Instant Hands, especially if you're a new spouse somewhere, Instant Hands can be something that gets you started to connect, where you're able to use your talents, or, if you're able to create something and do something for someone else, you can connect with more people in the community. So I see that there's so many benefits of services like this. And even as a military family, the importance of utilizing those things as well. So it's another way that we can support one another, because it's definitely not easy, I think, for spouses to figure out and to, make a living and build a career. It can be tough.
I've really leaned, to your point, I've really leaned towards being more intentful and watching local companies, or the companies that are veteran owned or military spouse owned, and really leaning into their messaging. We were very, very intentional. I haven't mentioned them yet, but they're an integral part of this company. Sam Salaya and his wife, Anna Marie Salaya, originally had the idea for Instant Hands when they were looking at places like Facebook and Nextdoor and seeing so many families posting, hey, could you help with fill in the blank? And then their responses were either too expensive or they were unanswered. And so you leave that item on the shelf. And Sam's family, his father and his uncles, are Vietnam veterans, Purple Heart recipients. And growing up, it was still very hard for them to have even things like hot running water when it came down to cost, or repairing just things around the house. So it's funny, as I look at those companies that say they're veteran friendly or military friendly, I look to their whys and I look to their mission statements. And when we were, working with Instant Hands, we were very intentional when we said our three main whys are simple. One, provide that financial security to military families, no matter where they are in the journey, no matter which chapter, no matter where they're stationed. Let's provide financial security to the active duty, the Guard, Reserve veterans and their families. And two, we built it in to specifically say military spouse employment. And by that, I mean, I'm a little biased because that's me, but I saw so many military spouses that felt so just like disappointed when COVID hit, and they were voluntold to become the homeschooling parent, whether they were ready or not. And just to have a little bit of job security, financial security. And most of all, I think from watching my mom's experience where technology was not as prevalent to my opportunity here with military spouse employment, we want to make it something that can transfer with you. I want you to move to your new duty station, and one less thing you have to worry about is having a job when you get there, because you could have a temp job doing some small things for your neighbors at your own pace when you relocate PCS to a new spot.
That's amazing.
Just, that by itself is a powerful statement. And through all of these actions, of course, is our third why, which is that community engagement piece. I want the military to have more opportunities to meet your neighbors in Phoenix. And I want the Phoenix population to meet the incredible people who serve. And that's the same for Las Vegas. It'll be the same for San Diego, San Antonio. I mean, across the globe, really. And that is why I think we've had such success in having the conversations with the larger organizations like USAA, like the Red Cross, like Blue Star Families, Military One Source, USO, those are the key shared values that we all have, and trying to put more of that in the world is really what we need.
Well, and I think too for even the veteran population, getting out of the military and entering like that transition alone, being able to support those who are stepping into a new chapter. This is something that no matter where you go, you can still be connected and be able to put your services out there and be able to support and connect with other people. Because I know that job sustainability like once you retire or get out of the military, the what next, that transition is a very vulnerable and sensitive time because, the military is such its own culture, right? So being able
Yeah.
to take your skills and tool sets into, if you want to do something, like if you're great at, contracting jobs and things that can help out, getting started with something like this can also be a valuable resource just to meet people and get yourself out there.
We have partnered with so many local organizations, and I know you've done the same, just to connect to the veteran population in particular, and even altered some of our business models. A lot of our older veterans were not thrilled with using an application for inviting someone to their house to do some small tasks like the younger population. It's no question. I Venmo my friends all the time. 1, 2, 3, done, and piece of cake. But I took for granted how much I use my smartphone and how quickly I can. So we've opened up things like phone lines, and we've opened up things like our website requests, where you can very quickly get in touch with somebody who's on our staff. And our staff is going to be, our full-time staff includes wounded warrior veterans. We have military spouses who work on our full-time staff. So it's a family that already speaks that language. And I think that alone it's one less hassle. And it's a very important thing to just be able to say things like, I'm about to PCS, do you have a cleaner? And not have to stop, explain what a PCS is, and then move forward.
That's true. Well, and even just the permission to make asking for help accessible, because especially as in the military spouse community, I think that it's like you're just so conditioned to just get it done and figure it out. And being able to have something that offers ease to the process of asking for help, where there's not shame or this feeling of I can't. It's just a simple, hey, are you available? I need this I need this job done. And it makes it easier because asking for help is so important, especially during PCS season and all that, for sure. So.
Oh, 100%. And if it's somebody you trust, it's somebody who already has base access, and it's somebody that's not going to charge you an amount where you feel like you're having to, compromise some other piece of your life. It becomes a much easier thing to do.
That's a really good point for people living on the military base to get, I've always imagined, because we've always chosen to live off post, but for those on post, I've always wondered, I love using Shipt, like the grocery store. Like I don't go to grocery stores. No, I love delivering. My husband, he loves going to the grocery store and taking his time and, taking my daughter, and I'm always staying home. I'm like, nope, go have fun with that, because grocery stores stress me out and I always buy way more than I need. So I love the convenience of Shipt. However, I think about if we lived on a military base, the inaccessibility, is that going to be how that works, and I'm sure there's ways people work with those, but to have the assurance that where you're soliciting those services and those needs, they're going to be able to get to your house. And I don't think there's anything out there like that.
No. And this is something we did in the middle of COVID. We actually looked at our business model. And this is actually a great transition point to our Neighbors in Need program. During COVID, Sam and Anna Marie and I and our team looked at, should we go to a totally volunteer model? We were concerned that there was, to invite somebody to your house, you're not supposed to get within 6 feet. How are you going to let people close by? How is this going to happen? So we looked at a totally volunteer model for things like, it's so much faster for a 22-year-old airman to run into the commissary, grab eggs and milk, and take it to the 86-year-old veteran than it would be for the 86-year-old veteran to grab a caregiver, get on base, go through the grocery store that was already picked dry at the beginning of COVID, and then leave. And so we try to make those services available to everyone as quickly as possible, and even work with the commissary and the base exchange and the AFIS exchange. Say, how can we help? How can we support our veteran community in this challenging time and speed up and make it more efficient a process for everyone involved? So it's funny, we went and thought about the volunteer model, and it turns out money was not a problem. It was that convenience was worth, it was so valuable to our veteran population that we eventually turned it into our Neighbors in Need program. And I know this will strike a chord with your heart, because you do the exact same thing also with a lot of your yoga classes. I know you have, and I'm so proud of you and so awesome and happy you're in my network for doing so. But our Neighbors in Need program is our company set aside a set amount each month. And if there was a veteran or an active duty family or a Guard or Reserve family that reached out to us, or the Readiness Center from the duty station reached out to us directly and said, "Hey, Adam, I have a family who needs a little bit of support, but money is an obstacle," then we reached into that pot of money and still had the task completed, but that family never saw a bill.
That's beautiful.
So there were so many. We are really trying to fundraise for that. We actually created a challenge coin. I'll have to send you the link. We created a challenge coin to help fund that initiative for our communities, because we easily get to $1,000 a month in tasks for families. And these tasks include, I've had a veteran's wife reach out to us and ask if we could send someone to just talk about airplanes to her husband. And there were a few things around the house, like a handicap rail that needed installed. And I love that story, because what ends up happening is we sent one of our fantastic airmen out to his home, and it turns out they both had the same job, just 30 years apart.
That's so powerful.
So instant connection. And at the same time, we had an active duty in the same couple months. We had an active duty spouse going through a divorce. Very tough time trying to figure out 1,000 things. Moving out of the home was not one of them. And we were a one-stop shop. So we coordinated with the Readiness Center, and we were able to relocate her in a couple days with trucks and movers, got her to a safe house, set up, and there was no bill. So those are kind of our Neighbor in Need programs that we want to also see happen at every duty station. And imagine if there's, an emergency there, it's just one more resource you could use. You could reach out to Instant Hands, and we can, work with your shirts, work with the Readiness Centers and other liaisons in the area to make sure that these families are served and taken care of. And I think that's just one more layer of resources that are definitely needed, but something that we can do to have even more of a positive impact in our military communities.
Well, especially for the unique situations too, because a lot of resources are pretty, it's a one thing, right? It's like, this is what we do, this is the one thing. But if somebody, I love the diversity of even, with volunteerism and having somebody going out, or the opportunity for people to volunteer with this, or the funds where somebody can just go and connect with a veteran, which what I have found over the years of working with, seniors, having conversations and spending time, that's so valuable. And we tend to neglect those things. And being able to bring that connection piece is such a gift. And I think that it's not just a gift for the individual who is receiving that support, but it's also a gift for the volunteer or the person going to provide that service, because you're making a difference. And at the end of the day, as humans, what I've seen, and I think that everybody can relate, is we want to make a difference. We want to be a better, or bring ease and peace, and see beautiful things happen for people and be part of that. So this is such a beautiful, it's almost like a bridge, a connector, right? It's like a way to connect those experiences and those opportunities and amplify, unique situations where we can help unique situations. And actually, what it makes me think of is, just the power of the volunteerism aspect that you guys have. People are always looking for ways to volunteer and give back. And this is a very meaningful way, uniquely too.
And we love that. And I think that has opened the door to conversations with the American Red Cross, which is one of the number one providers of volunteers in the entire world. You know, every country has a Red Cross. And that impact that you just mentioned, I mean, that's why I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, that's why I enjoy waking up every day, is because I do feel like our work matters. I get to see the impact that I have immediately on these armed forces families. I've been there myself, so I know what it would have meant, or what it meant to have that support in that moment. Because really, there's so many resources out there. It's about timing, right? It's trying to find the right place and the right person and getting the right resource to them. Because you get lost in the military world when they have 1,000 resources and you're not quite sure which one to pick. So this simplifies it a bit. It's kind of like a one-stop shop for a lot of just clearing up what you might need in the moment, instead of looking at one place for a truck that you could rent, or one place to find movers that you can use, and then you got to find or get them a base pass. It's kind of just something that makes life a little bit easier. So I love seeing the results and the 5-star reviews and the application of, wow, this was really cool, I'm going to use them again.
Well, and the other thing with this is that when people give themselves permission to receive that help, how that impacts the family. Like if I'm stressed because the house is a mess and I can't even start, right? And it's overwhelming, and we have these projects that are halfway finished, and there's all these things, right? Those things I like to think of, it's like your brain has all these tabs open. Like we have all these things we got to get done, and they just sit as these tabs that are open in our brain. And with all those tabs open, it like exhausts the computer, right? And so this is a way that we can take some of that weight off and start to ask yourself too, is there things that you need to be done that just like it just weighs in? And I think it's that energetic clutter. Like, you might not see it because you stuffed it in the garage, but it's still there. And it's something that might be disrupting your ease or your ability to be softer and more relaxed with your family because you feel all this pressure, right? But it's an opportunity to receive help and get rid of that clutter, that an energetic or mental clutter that is, costing you the present moment.
I am a huge, and I know we're kindred spirits in this, a huge believer in starting the day with some gratitude and just focusing your mind that you're going to have an amazing day. And that the tab theory is genius. I think your cup, I live in a world of abundance, but that cup only has so much in it. And when I pour into every single computer tab, it's so much harder to focus on being present, and so much harder to focus on making that impact. So I love that, this gives you, and I hope everyone gives themselves permission to put the self and self-care and close a few of those tabs, allow others to assist you. And I think back to a point you made earlier, it's not just allow them to assist you to take those tabs off your plate, but by assisting you, you never know what kind of an impact that has on that person. I find joy in assisting others. So I learn as just as much about, from my students as my students learn from me in class. And someone is going to get a positive, there's a positive impact for the provider doing the work, just as there's a positive impact that you get to cross that item off your list. So it's a shared experience, and I love helping provide those opportunities.
There's a TED Talk you're making me think of, and in the work I do, we do a lot on stress reduction. And I loved the TED Talk. I can't think of the woman's name off the top of my head in this moment, but she talks about how stress is not bad. But what she points out, like what's the not bad thing about stress is that when we are stressed, there's a neurotransmitter that is released called oxytocin that we all are familiar with. It's the cuddle, hugging. It fine-tunes our social instincts. Like it's the thing that makes us want to be with others, but that is released when we're stressed because that's your biology saying you do not have to face these hard things alone. This is when you get overwhelmed and you call your friend or your spouse to vent, like it's that craving to reach out for support. And that's in our biology. And to also serve others, they've done studies to show that volunteerism and giving back to others helps cultivate resilience. And so there is this parallel process this mutual balance that occurs. And part of that is our co-regulation that, I'm here to help you. That's helping regulate you, and then in times it also helps us ask for help so we can co-regulate with others. So there's a lot of beautiful neuroscience and studies around the importance of receiving and giving. So when Adam's talking about the cup, like I can only give so much in, the tabs, it's important that giving is great, but there has to be a karmic balance, right, of giving and receiving. And so, having a resource like Instant Hands or, looking in your own, like go back and look at your tabs, what tabs are open. Maybe it's just that you need some space to get creative, or you've been craving, like it's been on your mind and your heart to go on, go visit that nature trail that like, you're like, you keep thinking about it. Well, figure out how to go do it so you can really be intentional with your day to day. Because if we just have all these, I listened to this, I love this concept. I heard this on a podcast somewhere else, but it was just talking about how the opposite of a dream is illusion. Because dreams, if you put action to the belief, right, the dreams unfold. But if you just have this, desire, this belief, but it never unfolds, it just stays an illusion. And I really love that concept of like, if we can be more self-aware of the things that are open, like those tabs that are open and where we're pouring our cups. And if we are receiving, then we can really start to make changes in our life so we can mutually benefit one another. Because one thing I've learned, and Adam, you might be able to relate to this in your experiences, is, you don't have to martyr yourself either. Martyring is not, it's like it's kind of glorified, but it also, you think about, it's like the promotion of, I was actually I was on base earlier today having a meeting. We were talking about somebody was sharing about somebody, only got 3 hours of sleep and then they were chugging energy drinks and bragging about it. And it's like, look at all the things I get done, but then what is the cost? We're not acknowledging what the cost of that is. And so being able to ask and take that self-inquiry, so we are balancing ourselves essentially, but it's not going to happen without that self-awareness, right? So
right. I think, and I definitely didn't Google it. It's Kelly McGonigal, maybe,
yes,
for the TED Talk.
Yes, it is. It's Kelly McGonigal. Yep. Great TED Talk.
She and David Liu also had one about how stress isn't bad. And I think when I think about the martyr system, it's tempting. And there, because of all the challenges that go on in the military environment, I think it is tempting to focus on the martyr piece, or even, separately, maybe a victim mentality by anything that goes wrong. And I don't see anything wrong with it as long as it's a step in the process and you become aware of what's happening. Because I think there's a deficit, and this is just, kind of my opinion. I think there's been a deficit of validation or gratitude. And I see that time and time again, in particular within the military spouse community, of you do a lot. Military spouses accomplish a lot, and they're doing a lot, sometimes with very little. And so the cosmic balance to that is either recognition or gratitude or a thank you or a hug. I mean, literally, whatever your love language is, maybe all five. And I don't know that it happens as much as it could. And so therefore, there has to be a release. And sometimes that release is just by making known to the world, hey, this is going on and I really did a lot. And you're waiting for a response from somebody, whether it's your friends, your spouse, your community, your neighbor, your club, somebody just to see you and appreciate you while you're trying to do too much.
It is. I think that the root of a lot of shadow and pain that happens is because we're not seen, and people, and like I think you can maybe relate to this one too. It's hard, I think, as a military spouse, because, and I know I've talked about this in other podcast episodes, but the stigmas, it's like we are the hidden family member, even though, I mean, we're referred to as dependents, and it's just like the attitude of, I think about this past year and, kids are out of school, and the conversations that probably happen in military families of, well, I got to go to work. Sorry, you got to stay home. Like, figure it out. I can't, and having to negotiate those experiences, and then doing so much that, even if you're not leaving the house, you're still doing so much and not being seen for that. I think that can be the birth of so much resentment. and challenge. And I would be lying if I didn't say I haven't had my own experiences of frustration. Like, why, I mean, even I think back with my business that I grew here in San Antonio, and, I chose to stay because I felt like, why am I going to give up my dreams? Like, we should be able to have it both, and both was not easy, but now I'm changing a lot of things to be intentional so I can go with him next time. But the reality is that I think for spouses, because there's so much you're navigating, that of like, and then also attending to your own like interest, right? Like, other than the family, other than, the different just life stuff, or figuring out where's the closest grocery store, because I don't know this place, right? Like, it's, there's so much, but the importance of being seen and valued, right? Like, that's a big piece of connection.
Well, and I don't want to leave out the military families that may, you have these same symptoms within mil families, or families that maybe one member served, they're veteran now, and they are they're working in the civilian world, but the other spouse is still military, active duty military. And I think those challenges come up in those spaces in different ways. And it can be challenging living with that person who does demonstrate some of those, when you're expressing the feelings that you have of the challenges you're going through and you're frustrated, how does that service member then deal with them? And they're not equipped to do so, or they feel like it's really hard to speak what they're saying because they're tiptoeing around that spouse, so as not to make it worse. But I know I've had this opportunity, and I would encourage anyone to look into it, or a similar opportunity within your branch, because I'm not sure it extends to every branch just yet. But I have completed the resiliency training within the Air Force, and they relatively recently opened it up to all military spouses. Now, there was a short wait list, but I definitely gained some invaluable tools from they call it the RTA and the MRT programs for the Air Force. But becoming an MRT really opened up some cool techniques that I felt were day-to-day useful for things like how I could better avoid the passive-aggressive behavior, like how I could express emotion as a dude and still feel confident, and just not being frustrated all the time with things I can't control, and keeping my negative feelings from building up all the time, because I'm the kind of person that volcanoes. So I'll let it sit for a while, and then we'll have like a big volcano explosion of emotion. And that's not good either. It really wasn't productive looking back. So finding programs, mental health programs, or even just meditation, calming, programming that you breathe through some of these more challenging moments have been life-changing for me.
That's beautiful. I had no idea that MRT was expanding for spouses, and that's such a great resource for people to check into. And we back in 2018 with the USO, where my partnership and my story began with the USO, we started the Foundations course, which is it's like 52 hours of online training, and it's free for military members and spouses. And it's all in the foundations of yoga, mindfulness, self-care, breath. And so I agree, because one big thing that I've seen as leading this program, or working with the mentoring piece of this program that we still offer online, and all you got to do is go on the website, millmindbody.com, and which is where a lot of other resources are too with the mindfulness. But what I've found, people's feedback has been that it's like something they touch base with again and again. And you're like, I think that the more you're seeing more of these things pop up, and it's because it's invaluable as far as self-regulation. And I think it's beautiful. Adam was sharing, like, noticing, okay, I volcano up, and that goes back to that self-awareness of, are you even paying attention to what's happening within your body when you're stressed out, and what's triggering you? Because that's the kind of stuff that is going to give you insight on ways that you can seek support. Not just mental health, but as I said, it could be that you're garage cluttered and you need someone to help clear space, and that's okay,
Yeah, I am so grateful for opportunities like the Foundation. I'm happy the MRT program is opening up. They're making it virtual, which is nice. It used to be a TDY trip, so they're making it virtual, which is more convenient and will allow more families to attend. But again, those that has been life changing. I say I wish I learned about it sooner, but I learned about it when I needed to. And it's just that scenario. Imagine, like, do I need this or not? Well, imagine your spouse comes home and says, well, I got orders. My mind immediately rushes to solving the 100 things we need to get done before we get there. I don't even know where we're going, but I'm already packing boxes. I'm already labeling. I'm already ripping off the old stickers that I left on my table for the moving stickers to put the new ones on. I'm making inventories. And now I just breathe through it, right? Like, there's a moment of just the awareness of how I am as a person and the awareness of what will serve me best, so that I can best serve my family. So I'm thrilled that those opportunities exist, and I would recommend them to everyone. It has definitely been life-changing. Well, in a good way.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like, when we start to separate our reactions to the thought, because a lot of it's the story around it is what makes us react, like the story we make around something that makes us react. And so we can change those stories, but we actually just finished, like literally a week ago from the recording of this, we got our household goods with the military. And what was so funny is because the last move we did, there's stickers, and I obviously was pretty lazy about getting stickers off of certain things, depending on where they put it. So there was a moment of some moments of disaster of them being like, wait, I don't know which sticker this, like, is this the last PCS you did, or is this the current PCS? Like, the stickers that they put on our stuff. Like, I don't know. Oops. So
I find them everywhere.
It's like, come on, and then they'll put 2 on for 1 piece of furniture. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a method to the madness, but it's madness. I'm like, what is this? There's 2 for 1. Oh my goodness. But I think I think we can laugh and just, like, when we reflect on different challenges. Adam, as we are getting closer to closing this episode, is there any stories or anything that has come up for you as a military spouse that you've learned and you have something you want to share with others?
Yes, 2 things, and I know I echo this on behalf of many military spouses. I'm not the first to discover it or talk about it, but it's something I'm going to try to say to all military spouses having gone through it. One, and it's 2 parts. So part A, no one told us what to expect. You sign up, you get married to a military spouse, and then you're in. And even if you're military yourself, there was no one can create the perfect instruction manual. You really didn't know what to expect, and yet here you are. So I think that is something that's really important for everyone to hear, is we all kind of feel that way in different ways, but we all feel that way. Like, it's not like the pictures. It's not like the movies. It's not like what your friend said. It's not like what your mom and dad did. It's your story. And it's definitely not what I expected. That being said, take a chance. It's not always going to be perfect. You will get burned once in a while, but the opportunities to make positive connections, lifelong friends, leave your positive sunlight on this world in this short time that you've got, far outweighs any kind of negative that you're going to have. And so if you've tried a club before and it didn't work out for you, when you PCS, try the club again. Knock on your neighbor's door and take them a cake and just introduce yourself. Little things that you might take for granted, do, take the risk, take the chance. I promise it's definitely going to be worth it, because you never know where that next conversation leads. I love that I got to connect with you, Melissa. This is, a great example of, we never knew where that first conversation may lead, but you surround yourself with those like-minded people who share your values. Leave a positive impact on the world. Leave it better than you found it, and you can't go wrong.
I love that. And yes. Can we say it louder for those in the back? Like, yes. Take a risk. Because I've had a handful of conversations with other spouses who are like, you're crazy. Like, you got to because when I came to San Antonio, I opened a yoga studio. And originally it was like, why would I open a commercial location when I could be leaving in 3 years? And all I did, I always tell spouses, it's like, we always think that we make these decisions and they're permanent. It's like, I decided to do this and now I got to stick forever. Well, you're going to learn what works and what doesn't. And also, you can always negotiate, right? So I negotiated the terms of my lease, and you would be surprised how many times you'll actually get a yes versus a no. It was like, I can't, like I added, if military orders came down, can I break my lease? And that was my breaker, is like, if this is meant to be, they're going to say yes. If it's not meant to be, they're going to say no. Or I think just like put yourself out there, take the risk. If no one responds, it doesn't mean you're not planting seeds, or this is just redirecting you. Like it wasn't in alignment. So rejection is just redirection, and allowing, like I look at different things that I've done, because I've definitely hit the floor and bloomed, extravagantly. Like it's been all of it, like the fullness. But the reality is that it's just experiences we're having here in our life. We put so much meaning and permanence on one decision often, and that limits us so much. Where, I think this is whether you're military or if you're a human walking this planet, each thing that we do is just an experience. It's either going to grow you, it's going to give you information, it's going to teach you, it's going to bring you joy, right? Like these are just experiences that happen with us. And then we get to choose what we do with that experience by living our life intentionally and in the present. And so it's like a lot of times we hold ourselves back because we're afraid of, oh, well, what's the point of going to that social thing when I'm going to be leaving in 3 years? What's the point of, trying to find a babysitter when, like there's this situation, like whatever, right? We tell ourselves all these stories and we hold ourselves back so much, and that it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay for it not always to work out, because again, it's working out, just not the way that your ego may have said, this is the storyline. Like your life has a beautiful story to it. I love what Adam said, that, there's no manual or like, this is how it's going to be. This is your story. And I've said this before, it's like a big pet peeve of mine if like, where military spouses struggle with, articulating some of the challenges, and the response of, well, you knew what you signed up for. Nobody knows what they're signing up for. And also depending on your spouse's job in the military, like it's a different experience, right? So It's your story, and you get to create. You are the artist of your story. Beautiful things like Instant Hands. This is just such a great tool to maybe get you started in taking that risk. So I love that.
I love it. Thank you so much. I really appreciated you having me on today, and I know I will share some links with you. We are slowly moving out, revamping the application and website as we speak. We've put in a very large tech update that's going to really facilitate the entire process, make it even smoother. Our setup is going to be very exciting, and as we move out to all the duty stations, I'll share with you some links. We could definitely use some support with our Neighbors in Need program. So if anybody's interested, I'll share that link with you, Melissa, and maybe we can post it to the site so that
yes.
Anybody who's interested in supporting those families who might be in need, they can help with the Challenge Coin program we've got going on. You get a really cool Instant Hands coin and a note from us. So I'll share that with you.
And if people wanted to find you guys, can you just say the website and anywhere else they can reach and find Instant Hands?
Absolutely. We are on Instant Hands, INSTANTHANDZ.com. And we are on Facebook, Instagram as well, and of course our website. And then I'm happy to share with you my email address, and the military population is welcome to reach out to me directly. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, we can share that information also in the description of this episode. And thank you, Adam. Thank you all who are listening. Be sure to subscribe to Operation Within. Share, help us spread the word on this resource as well. And we are so honored to have Adam here with us, and hope that you were able to take some gems away from today. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.